Hi everybody and welcome to another Japanese inspired watercolour painting. Today I'm going to be teaching you how to create this painting alongside me, and it's really simple. I'm going to break it down step by step so you don't feel as overwhelmed, as there is quite a lot going on, but once you break it down it's super simple. So let's get right to the painting. To begin with, I pre-mixed the colours that I wanted to use for the trees that are at the forefront of this painting. So I created a brown mixing blue and a lot of brown to get a really deep, rich colour. I put some red in the palette and I also mixed some red with a little bit of that brown that I've already created. And I did this to create an even deeper red to use for all the shadows. And I created a nice cream colour mixing yellow and white. This was just to add highlights onto the branches, and then I got straight into the painting. And all you want to do for this is work section at a time, going in with the dark brown and cream to start with and mapping in a few branches, and then you can go in with the red, dotting the light red to begin with and then the darker red to add the shadow to each individual section, following the reference photo to identify where these shadows need to be. The trick for this particular painting is being really patient. You don't want to jump in and add really big dots. You want the dots to be nice and small, which can take a really long time, and it's so easy to just think, let me go in and add really big dots to fill the space a lot faster. But what this will do is take away the correct texture that we want for this piece. When you add the big dots, the leaves are going to look a little bit too big, as if you look at the reference photo, everything's really small and merges together really nicely and has that really nice blend. So the best way to do this is to use the small dots. Also, when you're painting in the branches, I think it's a good idea to leave a little bit of a space between certain sections. For example, if you've got an overlap of some red and then go in with the brown, if you leave that gap for the red instead of painting in the whole branch, it's just going to look a lot nicer, flow better, as the red over the brown is going to be hard to get that over correctly because the brown is darker and the red will just sit on top of it and you'll still be able to see the brown. So leaving them little gaps is going to help with the realistic finish. And there's actually more of the dark red going further up the page in my opinion, so I used a lot of that darker red going up towards the top, but then right at the top you've got that light red creeping through, and finding that colour balance is something you really want to focus on, and it can be so much fun to add such a vibrant colour down in these beginning stages. As you can see as well, I worked on the bottom left hand side to begin with, worked my way up from there, and then I went over to the right hand side and began adding colour that side. And this ties into working section at a time. Everything on the left hand side I did split into multiple sections, but I still kept to that side to begin with as I wanted to get each area in turn in there. And then on the right hand side I think the method's a little bit different because the branches are really prominent compared to the left hand side where they aren't as much so. So I went in with the brown paint and the cream colour and really made sure to get all of them branches in there instead of leaving all the gaps like I previously did on the left hand side, and focus more on the colour. This time I'm focusing more on getting them branches in there before I add much more to that side. Once I was happy with the branches, I made sure that the paint had dried before going in for this next section, and that's really important because we're now going to paint the sky, and this is coming behind a lot of that paint, and if you go straight in when the paint is still wet, it's all going to merge together, and you don't want the sky to have that red in there, as we want the bright blue sky as demonstrated in the reference photo. So I put some blue in my palette, made sure I added lots of water to get this really light, and then went in with some horizontal brush strokes and painted this across the whole sky area. I dotted it across some of the red, and I didn't go in with the horizontal strokes as I didn't want the blue to sit on top of all of the red, so I just dotted it into the places that it was actually needed because that red is so beautiful and I really didn't want to tamper with that colour. Then once I was happy with all of this, I created a variety of different shades of green and a couple of yellows. So I mixed some yellow with a drop of green and created a lime green. I also had just green in my palette and then green with a little bit of brown, so you've got the transition between light green and yellow all the way to dark green. And I went in with the exact same technique that we used with the red and dotted this down on the page. I worked from right to left because I'm left-handed, and it made it a little bit easier for smudging. So if you are right-handed, you might want to do this the opposite way round and work from left to right. But it's just going in, identifying where the lighter shades are from the reference photo and putting in the light yellow down first, and then going in with the lime green, the plain green, and then the dark green. So you're working from light to dark across the whole section. I also painted in a couple of trees at the top of this area by putting in a couple of vertical lines and then dotting around that to replicate the branches and then the leaves coming out from that. So it's a really simple way just to make sure you've got a few trees creeping out from the top going up into the sky area. Once you've filled all of the space for the land, then went in and painted the water. You want to make sure you've got all of the land in there first and have a little bit of drying time so they don't all merge together, and you can see that separation between the still water and the actual land itself. And for the water, I went in with some symmetry, so I flipped all the colours we've already used upside down basically, so you can see the reflection on the water. This is really simple to do, but it can feel quite overwhelming, but just working step at a time. Where the line meets between the land and the water, that's where the reflection should fall, and then just following that. And if all else fails, you could just go in with some blue and have it as just a blue lake. You don't always need that symmetry if it's too overwhelming to achieve. I find it's best to not use as much detail within the water, so you can see that it's the reflection of the still water, as it does look similar but not entirely the same. And horizontal brush strokes to blend all the colour is a really nice way to achieve that symmetry but still be able to tell that it is water. And then to finish this painting, I went around the edges with some water and dotted in all of the colours that I've used today to create a nice natural blend out. And I think this really helps tie everything together. And that's how easy it is to create this Japanese inspired watercolour painting. Make sure you check out my Patreon for the real-time tutorial if you're wanting to paint in more detail alongside me, and if not, I'll see you next time for another video. Don't forget to like and subscribe and let me know what kind of nature art content you'd like to see in the future. Thank you so much for watching. Bye guys!